go live. Hello, everybody. Let's get things up and running here. Make sure that we are live according to my phone. And then we're going to jump right in. Because this week is a big week, as evidenced by the title of this stream. Audio sounds good. All right, so I'm going to do my usual intro, then we'll jump in with what we're doing. So for those of you who are not aware, my name is Cheese Doodle. I am a member of the TagPro Future Group and Development Team tasked with improving the game, making new development updates, and then talking to everybody about what they're going to be, what they are, and what they should be in the future. We are the game TagPro. TagPro.gg is where you can play. It's a free-to-play online capture the flag game right in your browser. 4v4, matches of about 6 minutes. Hop on it. So, I want to skip through all that really quickly because I'm really excited to get started with our actual content for the week, which is that it is release mode. We finally got this thing out. So, I'm going to put on my celebratory glasses for a couple seconds here. And we made it. I'm actually so excited that we made it. I can't believe this took so long to pull together, and it was such a technical release that I'm just so happy that it's done. Having this thing out and it worked so well to the release. Usually we expect with every release, a couple things crash, a couple things we have to fix immediately because it's just not working the way we thought it would. None of that this time around. We had some little things like visual effects and ordering of people on the leaderboard and stuff, but overall, fantastic in terms of release smoothness, quality, whatever word you want to use. So release mode, we made it. Super excited for that, but I also can't read my screen when I have these on, so I'm not gonna keep those on. So goal for this week, we are going to go through the full release notes, talking about everything that went into them, what the expectations are for some of these new features, some of the things that we're looking at that might not be exactly the way that we want them long term, but that definitely work short term. And then we will go from there into the candy board, go through the stuff that we closed, because we did close a bunch of tickets this time around. And then we will finish up with our usual candy stuff. I'm not sure if we're going to have time for a feature building session this week, just because it's going to take me a while to get through all these release notes. But we'll see what the timing looks like when we get there. So without further ado, I have the release notes in front of us, and we are going to step by step go through everything in here, what it means, and what I want it to look like in the future. So first thing, most important thing, this one was a doozy. I think I just made that clear. This release was so unbelievably technical compared to some of the ones that we've had in the past, to the point that some of the stuff that we announced, it's like one-line things, but they took weeks or months to actually get that one-line thing into these release notes. And the good news is, now that we have those things done, we can build on them long-term, and we're going to have a much better site in the future because of this, but getting it there was a doozy, as it says. So because of that, it took us such a long time to pull all these things together as we were going. It did ultimately delay this release much farther out than we were hoping it would be. So along the way, we closed a lot of other tickets just because we had this extra time on the side while the big things were being worked on. So this release ballooned to about 3 or 4 times the size we had originally intended it to be. But I think in the end, it worked out for the best because we've got a pretty good changes up on the site now. So excuse me if my voice is a little scratchy. I had a little bit of a head cold again because why not? But so ranked features and improvements. These are just specific to ranked matchmaking, things that have changed as of Monday. So seasons is the biggest thing, the most obvious thing that is going to be on the way. For those who are not aware, a season is going to be a block of time that we say this couple month stretch is meant to be isolated from the other couple month stretches. So season 0 has been ongoing on the site for the last, what are we at, 9 months maybe? A long time. And the goal now within the next couple of days is to transition from season 0 into season 1. And then as it says here, months going forward should only be about 3 months long. So what differentiates one season from the next are the things that happen between seasons. So right now on the leaderboard, you've got players all the way at the top. You've got a lot of players who are all the way at the bottom. The goal of a season reset is to bring that all back together so that everyone's starting closer to the middle, not completely reset, and then you get that chase again to get to the top and everything that comes with that. Other things that go along with seasons are flares. I was really excited to get the flares up and visible on the leaderboard finally. I'm going to spend some more time in a minute talking about those. And then the last thing to do with seasons is your oh nope, I lost my third thought. Resetting the tiers. So breaking people into different groupings based on how close together they are in skill, and then making sure the players are playing with games of similar skills. All that gets reset in between seasons, and we will talk through a little bit more about that. But that was what most of the technical work that went into this release, was getting all of the stuff that needs to happen between one season and the next in working order. So I did also mention in the release notes here a neutral flag trial. We're going to probably do that in the next couple days as soon as we make sure the season resets are working, just for a few days to make sure that it's actually working with two different queues going. TBD on whether we'll have neutral flag initially in season 1. I'd like to. I think it would be better to do that, but we'll see how it looks in the trial and then decide what we do there. So I think that's good enough for seasons. Tier flares. As you can see on the leaderboard now, we've got flares for tiers 1 through 8. You can only see a couple of them right now, or you can see most of them. You can't see the bottom 2 tiers right now. So what happened when we went through our calculations, we found that we did not have enough players who were active to justify 8 full tiers of players. So you're only seeing the tiers that we could justify right now, which is currently 6. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then these 3 at the top are all tier 1. They get lumped together. So we've got individual flares for each tier. I think they're pretty cool. Nobody's actually seen what this one does in practice yet. It has a little bit of an arc reactor trail behind it. So as soon as somebody, which only one person's eligible for right now, but as soon as somebody earns that, we'll hopefully see that in game, and hopefully it looks good, because I thought it looked pretty good when I made it. So other things with the flares, Glass Marble. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Glass Marble, a player in the community. Huge shout out to them for helping us put together these flares. We had like a rough idea that we wanted to do gemstones, and we were trying out some things that looked pretty not great in truth, trying to figure out how we were going to get them from that to an actual finished product. He took all of these sketches that we had and ideas and color schemes and everything, and he just cranked out all of these flares that we've got right now. So Glass Marble, huge shout out for putting those together for us. I think this really makes the release look a lot better than it would have if we were still unsure, or if we didn't have high quality flares. I think it'd be a lot less exciting to be achieving some of these higher levels. So the other thing to do with flares is how they are earned. I want to talk about that a little bit more. So one thing that we really wanted to address, and I talked about this on stream a couple times in the past, was how do you maintain the prestige of a flare if you're going to have it for a very long time. So I go back to the axe flare that everyone's familiar with on your profile. If you were playing public games and you earned a win rate of 75% over 300 games, you earn the axe flare forever. You could never lose your axe flare. It stays with you for as long as you are playing the game and have an account. Now, that was really good when it was first added in, because players who earned the axe were obviously the top players. They look really cool. They can show off their flare. 10 years later, it's kind of lost a little bit of the prestige that it had. You've got certain players who maybe bought an axe off of somebody a long time ago. Maybe they earned an axe by like cheesing it with the regions, like they played with their friends at like off hours in Oceania and just got a fake win rate and got the flare. You've got players who found rolling 300 workarounds, like your Pyruvates of the world, who figured out that they could get their own alternate accounts into a game and then just beat themselves enough to get an axe. And then you got players who just aren't that good anymore, and they earned an axe a long time ago, stopped playing for a couple years, came back, and they're just not that quality. So having an axe used to be like a huge status symbol that you are one of the best players in the game. Now it's a cool flare, but it's not necessarily representative of the top players. So we were trying to figure out, how do we avoid creating that same problem with the ranked flares, with the tier flares that we are offering people. The first option that came up that we did not go with was to make a new set of flares every season. Now, at surface level, that makes sense. If you think, okay, you earned this flare during this season, you earned a different flare in a different season, no one's going to think that you are still a top player if you only have the season 2 ranked flare and we're in season 20, right? But if you run the numbers on that, you've got 8 tiers and actually 10 tier flares, because there are 3 flares in tier 1. So you've got 10 flares per season, 3 seasons or 4 seasons per year. We're looking at 3-month seasons. That's a ton of flares. We'd be having to make new ones every season, and we struggle to make these ones at the level that they're at right now. So just basic math, we don't have the facilities to be making 40 new flares a year. It's just not going to happen at the level that we want. So what we ended up doing was that instead of having flares be earned permanently, they are earned for the season that you are playing in, and then potentially the next season. So to break that down a little bit more, if you are playing TagPro and you earn 20 wins at or above the bronze tier, you are awarded the bronze flare. And you can see some players up in the flare log here earning that bronze flare. So you only earn the bronze flare with 20 wins at or above a bronze level. After you've earned the bronze flare, you need an additional 10 wins at or above silver level to earn the silver flare, as Messi did up here, etc. You need 10 wins at or above gold, at or above platinum, at or above diamond, and then it goes up to 13 or 12 wins, then 13 wins, and then 15 wins at the very, very top. So what this is trying to do is ensuring that you get to that tier, yes, but you also have shown that you deserve to be in that tier. So just getting in to the contender tier for winning a game at diamond does not earn you the contender flare. You need to show that you deserve to be there by winning at least 12 times at or above that contender level to get that flare. And so that makes sure the flares actually are worth something, because you had to show that you deserve to be there. And then keeping them, once you've earned that flare, no matter what else you do for the rest of that season, you have that flare. It will never be taken away from you. Even if you win 12 times in contender and drop down to diamond, you keep that contender flare for the season that you are in. At the end of the season, and this is back to what I was getting at originally, we remove all of the flares that were earned for tiers, only for players who were not active enough to make the leaderboard. So currently you'll see I have 436 games. Because this is a 9-month season, which is not the norm, I am not active enough to make the leaderboard, which requires 15 games per week, which puts us at about 505 right now, if I'm not mistaken, or 500, something around 500 right now. So if you earn a tier flare and the season ends, when the next season starts, that flare is revoked unless you were on the leaderboard in the previous season. So to walk you through an example, if Suchit at the top here earns the challenger flare and finishes the season, he will be well above that cutoff for 15 games per week. So when season 0 ends, if he has the challenger flare, when season 1 begins, he will keep the challenger flare. He will not lose it for the entirety of season 1. No matter what happens in that season, he has that flare for the full season because he locked it by staying active for the full season. Now, if I finish the season with the platinum flare and I am not active, when season 1 starts, I will lose the platinum flare and I would need to re-earn it in season 1 if I wanted to have it again. So that's the difference between the two. If you want to keep it for the next season, you stay active. If you just want it for the current season, then you have to earn it and then you keep it for the duration of that current season. So the goal with that is that anybody who has one of these top flares, or any of these flares frankly, has shown that they have recently been at that level playing that well. And so it should be a little bit more prestigious to be wearing that flare, because you could not have earned it a couple of years ago. You had to have earned it recently. Now, on the tail end of that, we were saying, okay, the flares are cool. The system makes sense. The justification is there. But it's also nice to have a flare that you've earned and that you have kept. So what do we do to give people flares that they will keep long-term and forever, so they're not just playing for nothing if they don't get to keep these things long-term? And that is where the season-specific flares came in, which is our next point. So season-specific flares are added 1 per season. And you'll see for season 0, the flare is going to be a match, because the people helped us with ranked matchmaking. So a lit match will be the season 0 flare. Now we have 2 different things here. For season 0, this match flare will be earned for any player who played at least a single game of ranked matchmaking during season 0. So no cutoffs, no anything like that. Everybody who played a game will get this flare. For the future, every season going forward, you must finish the season on the leaderboard to earn whatever the flare for that season is. So we haven't announced the season 1 flare yet, but anybody who stays in active 15 games per week during season 1 will earn the season 1 flare when we announce that. So that's a permanent flare. Nothing will ever take away that flare. It is awarded when the season ends, because we don't know what the average is or what the number of games required is until we've actually ended that season. But if you're staying well above the 15 games per week, you are going to earn that flare when the season ends. But again, season 0, just one game is all you need, so don't worry if you didn't make the cutoff. You're still going to get that flare for season 0. That is 2 out of the 3 things that we did with flares. The final thing that we did was, so we got tier flares that go away at the end of the season. You've got the season-specific flare you keep forever. We wanted to do one more thing to kind of give some prestige at the very, very top. So getting to the top is a really big deal. Obviously, staying at the top, you're one of the best players in the game. We wanted that to have some sort of historical record other than just the marking on your profile. And so we added in 2 other permanent flares, and you can see them here. They are the historical CTF and NF champion flare. So these flares are only awarded to players who finish a season active at the very, very top of the leaderboard. So at the end of this season, if Junoon is still in 1-1, the champion tier, they will permanently earn the ranked CTF historical champion flare. And they will keep that forever. It can never be taken away. Same thing if we have a neutral flag tier. If we add other tiers in the future, we would make their own 1-1 flares. So we've got 2 different kinds of permanent flares, a really, really high achieving one for everybody, and then the tier flares in between those 2. So a lot of flare work, a lot of discussion about what the best way to go about that was. If you have critiques on that, I need to hear them soon because we're running out of time to change the mold there, but we can obviously adjust this in the future if needed. So that's the situation with flares. I'm pretty happy with how we landed on it, but again, if you have thoughts on that, feel free to share and we will go from there. Post-game skill score updates. This one was a lot more work than we thought it was going to be to get in, but it looks very straightforward on the site. If you are in a game and you finish that game and you look at the leaderboard, it will now show you how much you went up or you went down from the game that you just played. So just to give you a little visual, it's very simple. The game ends, and then at the bottom of the leaderboard, you have got a skill score update that pops up, I hope, down there. Boom. And so that's just a way of helping us address the synchronization issues that we were having in the past. Players were having issues with finishing a game, going to the leaderboard, and seeing that they had gone up or down in a way that was unexpected, considering they had won or lost. So now you don't have to do that. You can just look, okay, I won this game. I gained 7 skill score points. Done. Now you can go check the leaderboard. It should be reflected there still on that tab, and it should all be up to date forever now. We fixed all those issues, but it's much more clear in the game now that you've gone up or down. If you were seeing really, really large, unexpected numbers here, like I think yesterday somebody posted one where there was a plus 41, those are players who are just starting off in ranked, and it's kind of like their placement matches, so that their variability is a lot higher because they haven't played many games yet. So most of the time you're going to see something around the 3 that you have here, sometimes a little bit higher if you're statistically above or you're still on the tail end of your placement games. But more often than not, it's going to be roughly between 2 and 5 points for anybody post-game if they won or lost. So those are up there now and working pretty well from what I've seen. We had an initial bug with that one where we had an avoid. You wouldn't show the tiers of the players. It would show new for all the players. We fixed that pretty quickly. It was just a fetching issue. And it should, if it's a void, it should show one person loses, the rest of their teammates have nothing, and then if it's a prorated win, you get the positives over here. There is an ongoing thing, I'm not sure if this is a bug or not, where if it's a prorated win where the team that was 4 players beat the team with 3 players 1-0, but that one score came in after the team of 3's 4th person left. So 4v4, person leaves, this team scores, then the game voids. I don't think we're awarding any points to the team that scored there. Whether we should or not, I haven't quite decided yet because their only cap was 4v3. The player never came back. But also if that player left right before they capped and they were about to cap, I don't know. It's kind of, I could go either way. I don't have a super strong opinion, but I think right now I'm not super inclined to change how it is just because it works. But obviously if you have thoughts on that, let me know. It's an ongoing conversation right now with the future group, so we'll follow up on that soon. Dynamic tiers, I hinted at this a little bit ago. This is another extremely technical thing that kind of got reduced down to a couple sentences here. There was a lot of back and forth on this, how to do it, what the best metrics to use are, how do we decide how many tiers to have in a given region. And if you'll recall, about a month and a half ago, I had a stream where I tried to figure out how to balance the tiers based on games being played. I went through a bunch of work to get that set up and see how it worked, and then we ended up throwing that out because it wasn't actually very good. So what we've landed on is that tiers are decided by the number of active players in that ranked region. So capture the flag, North America, we have approximately 200 players who are active. We are currently defining active as 15 games per week over the duration of the season. I think we're going to modify that slightly to not have it be over the whole season. It'll be a shorter timeline because we want players who are recently active. But what the end goal of that is that we don't have bloated tiers. So before this release, we had 8 tiers, and it looked like we had a couple, like I think it was like 700 players in those 8 tiers who had played 25 games or more. But for those who were at the lower levels, you would have noticed it was really, really hard to get games. And that was because most of those players in the 7th and 8th tier were inactive. They were not playing the game regularly. So what we did instead was we only calculate the tiers, how many we should have, and their distribution based on the players who are active. So where that gets a little bit confusing is that you have a player like me who is currently not active, but I still have a tier. So what we do with that is we take all the active players, we sort them, we run them through something called a k-means analysis, I think it was, where it tries to group all of the players that it gives you into as many buckets as you let it group players into. So we currently have 6 buckets. You have tier 1 through 6, and it tries to spread those players around 6 buckets as well as it can. Sometimes that makes a bell curve, sometimes a little more linear. Right now we're a little bit more linear, but what it does with that is it sets boundaries for your skill level. So the boundaries are what matters. So even though I was not included in the tier calculation, I still have a skill rating, and I fall within the boundary of active players in the platinum range. So I am not above anybody in diamond, I am not below anybody in gold, so I fall within the platinum boundaries even though I was not ranked at platinum. So if I go to my profile, you'll see I do not have a rank here because I am not a ranked player. If you go to somebody who is ranked, you can see their rank right there. And so that's an easy way to see if somebody's active if they do or don't have a rank, but they will still have a tier, so we can still use that for making games, which is the big part of that. So dynamic tiers are really, really technical because they have to calculate every single day. We have some smoothing going on with those so that if there's a big influx in players, it doesn't immediately jump up, but it does work its way up with time. And we had a big bug that came out right off the bat. Actually, I think you might have noticed it 2 days ago, where the leaderboard started with like 15 people, and then the next day it was 5. And I think Ouch, my boss, was the last person in tier 1. And what we realized was happening was that k-means analysis that I mentioned a minute ago was looking at the players at the very top and how they were really running away from it. Because if you look at this, 1793, that's over 150 higher than the person in 4th place. It's a really big string out at the very, very top that you don't see anywhere else. Because the difference from 1st to 4th right now is almost the distance from me to the player in 17. Like, it's a little bit less than that, but you get the point that I'm making here. So what the k-means was doing was it was seeing these extreme outliers, and it was saying, oh, nobody can be grouped with them. So it was making a group at the very, very top with just a few players, and then everybody else together at the bottom. And so we had to kind of force its hand. We kind of forced the hand of the algorithm where we don't let it make such a small bucket at the top. We require it to keep a certain percentile of the players, because what's the point of having a tier if you only have 5 players in it, right? It's not really what we're going for here. So I think 17 is what it is for the current player size. If more players play the game, it would still grow with that player base. So if a tier is going to expand, we don't do that overnight. So right now we have 6 tiers. If a big influx of players came and it justified having 7 tiers, we talked about this on stream, there would be a notification that says there's going to be an expansion happening soon right here. You would click on it, it would tell you which tiers are going to be expanding and when. And the reason we wanted to do that is because if you go to bed and you're in tier 5 and overnight it decides actually we need 7 tiers, you might get pulled down into tier 6 when it expands, because it's going to create a new empty tier, sort everybody back into those new tiers. So some people are going to get moved down a little bit. So we just wanted to give people a heads up. I think it's a 5-day warning if you're going to get moved. It doesn't say that you're going to get moved, but you might get moved in those 5 days. It's like people right on the fringe mostly will get pulled down a little bit, but it should be pretty much a minor disruption as much as we can make it be. In the other direction, if it's going to contract, so say we had a lot of players, some people left, so we only have enough to justify 5 tiers now, we would do that right away. So we don't want to leave bloated tiers where people aren't getting games. So we say, okay, immediately just crunch up, get rid of that bottom tier. All that really happens there is a player who's in one tier might move up to another tier. No one's going to really complain about that. So we decided there was not a reason to wait to get that done. So that was the other part of dynamic tiers, and that is working as expected as far as we can tell. So leaderboard activity icons. These ones you can see right now with OK then, I think, and Ball Don't Lie. Yeah, so OK then is currently inactive. He is decaying in skill score. If you've looked at it every day, it's getting a little bit lower each day because he's currently decaying. If he plays a couple of games, he will stop decaying, and that will be that. Ball Don't Lie is not currently decaying, but he will soon be removed from the board for inactivity. So if he gets to 3 weeks with no game, I think he's going to get removed from the leaderboard. Not quite sure when his last game exactly was, but yeah, that's those just let you know, hey, like play a game or you might get removed from the leaderboard. So I don't think there's anybody from tier 1 missing from before the release, but we do take players off the board, obviously, as you can see, if you have not played enough games, just because we want players who are active to be the ones reflected on the leaderboard. So decay floors. This one was a big one for just the quality of the game. If you are playing and you're at a high level and you stop playing like an okay then type player, you should not decay all the way back down to the very, very starting skill level. That's just kind of pointless, because if you are one of the best players in the game and you stop playing for a month, you didn't all of a sudden become the worst player in the game. Like, you're still one of the best players in the game. So the floor for how low you're able to decay is a little bit below the tier that you were in before you started to decay. So okay then would decay down to tier like 2-1, I think, or 2-2. And that's as far as he would go. He wouldn't be on the leaderboard or anything until he plays enough games to be active again, but he's not going to be playing down with the tier 5 players, because why would you do that? It's just not, it's not fun for anybody for him to be down there. So that went in. We fixed the skill score creep, aka eloflation, at the very top. We were previously adding in a bunch of skill score to the system for high statistical performances. We still have one more fix on the way for that, where it's not nearly as bad as it was, but we're still noticing that certain players are getting the bump when they don't need to be. So we're going to balance that out in the next day or so. But you shouldn't see this runaway at the very, very top. And that's not just like Janoon that high above everybody else. It's this whole tier 1 running away from the rest of the pack, because they're just getting more out of the game. If they play a certain number of games, if you win half and you lose half, you would think that you stay pretty even if the probabilities of the wins are about 50%. But if you took those and you had one player who was performing high statistically in each of those games, they would be going up over time, even though they were winning and losing 50% probability games, because we were adding skill score into the system. So it wouldn't be representative of their actual skill, because it just kept bumping them up higher for doing nothing, essentially. And so when you have all of these players doing that at the same time, it moves that whole bubble of players up together, not just one person, and they kind of leave behind the rest of the field, even though they're not really outperforming the rest of the field to the same degree. Did that just pop up now, or was that there before? Because I feel like I'm losing my mind. Anyway, we fixed that problem. We have one more tweak to it, but you should not see, in Season 1, you should not see the same runaway at the very top. They will still be higher, obviously, because they are stronger players, but it's not going to be like they're untouchable for the duration of the season. So that'll come up in a minute with the resets. No longer allowing resets for deletion and merging. So we had a case where I think it was Janoon actually had an account that was in the top 10 or something, deleted that account, made a new account, and then played again and rose back to the top. We don't want that happening for 2 reasons. One, because it's kind of disruptive at the lower levels to have a top account start from the bottom and then have to go through all these games again, kicking their butts the whole way through. Not fun on either side, for the same reason that we set the decay floor. The other part of it is that it's not really honest to the leaderboard. We want players to have one name, play with that name for the full season. So we shouldn't have players deleting an account just to pick a new name to rise back to the top. So if you delete your account or you make a new account and you merge your account into that new one, that account will not be eligible for ranked for the rest of the season that you're in. You'll have to wait for the next season to start playing again. So little things like that are live now. We've got server balancing, and there's an asterisk on this. We thought we fixed server balancing. We still have one more thing to do with it. So server balancing is the system that picks which Chicago server you're going to end up on. I think I can show you with the developer view here. You have 5 Chicago servers, and you have 3 game slots on each of those Chicago servers. But you'll see right now there are currently 2 games on Chicago 5 and no games anywhere else. So previously, before this release, we were picking a random server, sending players to that random server, and assuming that the randomizer would more or less balance the servers, which was not happening. We were seeing cases of like all 3 of the ranked games happening on the single, like even the Chicago 5 would have all 3 games going on it instead of them being spread out, which is not what you want because the servers are capable of, if we have 5 servers, why aren't we using them, basically? But why are we currently having the same problem, even though we're saying it's fixed? Well, we found a different problem after the fact. So what we did was, in our fix that we did, we sent all the games into the joiner, let the joiner pick which game to send them to based on how the joiner thinks the game is performing. But if you'll see over on the right side here, there's a little number. Whoops. A little number that says -7 ms. So what that's doing is reporting the average ping to that server over the last day and saying, okay, this is the best server right now. But you'll notice there are other ones that are very, very close. All the servers are performing fine except for Chicago 2. So it should be balancing them across these servers, but it's taking the best one and only the best one right now, which is not balancing games at all. So that should be fixed soon. We know how we're going to do it. We just have to actually do it. So it's more balanced than it was, but also less balanced than it was because the way that we let it balance isn't actually balanced. So it's in progress. It'll be fixed. But yeah, if you're seeing issues with the servers, let me know. It shouldn't be a problem because it still maxes out at 3, and we know that the servers can handle 4. We intentionally capped them at 80%, so should not be a problem. Anyway, players recently leaving from or arriving in the joiner are now considered alongside players in game. So we were seeing before that if a player was queued for casual and for ranked, if the player came back from a ranked game into the joiner and then got matched with a casual game, while they were getting sent into that casual game, if there were enough other players for a ranked game, it would make them a game without considering the person who was being sent into a game. And that was causing problems if, for an easy example, that player was a tier 1 player and you have 7 other tier 1 players and a tier 2 player, it would make a mixed game with the tier 1 and 2 while the tier 1 was being sent in, instead of waiting for them to get there and then sending all 8 tier 1 players into the same game. And that's an extreme example. It wasn't always exactly like that, but it was still creating mixed tier games when the actual players online did not justify that. So now the joiner knows if a tier 1 player just got sent to a casual game, that they'll be back in a second, wait for them to actually reconnect to the joiner and then make that game. Or if they were in a casual game that just ended, it knows they're going to be coming back to the joiner, same thing, wait for them to actually get back into the joiner, then make your game, instead of just going now without that player. So it should increase. I think I saw last night there were some games going with 6 tier 1 players at the same time, which was good to see. So that system appears to be working as far as I can tell, but we'll keep an eye on the logs and make sure it stays that way. So minor things, the map voting dropdown removed. You don't need to vote on maps in the game that you're playing for ranked because the MTC is going to have access to the actual selection rates of maps. So there's no reason to say I like it or I dislike it, because that's not what the point is. It's whether you picked it over a different map that they care about. So they'll have access to the current season and historical seasons as well, so they can see how a map performs over time as well. Wait time considerations are adjusted. So we were having issues with players who were waiting for like 5, 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes, which shouldn't happen anymore, but those players were still not getting prioritized for games over somebody in a tier above them. For an example, if you have a bunch of tier 1 players, a couple of tier 2 players, and like 2 tier 4 players, sorry, bad example. If you have tier 1 through 4 and you have enough in tiers 1 through 3 to make a game, it was always making that game over and over again and never including the tier 4 players. So now if the tier 4 players have been waiting for a very long time, I think it's like 10 or 15 minutes right now, it will prioritize the tier 4 players over a tier 3 player. So it's going to just bump you up every once in a while to make sure they're actually still getting games. And that case shouldn't come up anymore with the new tier distributions that we have, but it should reduce the ability for there to be anybody with a wait time that long at the bottom. You will still occasionally see higher wait times for players at the top tiers if you're a tier 1 player, but if you're a tier 1 player and you are the only one online, it's not going to make a game if it can't find a fair match for you. So that can sometimes see longer wait times, but that's the only case we should see with long wait times. The maps page does have a ranked section still that does show scores for the maps that are on the casual. Yeah, that needs to be updated. That's the this section down here, yeah, this is kind of useless information. It's pulling the same data as the casual maps. So yeah, this needs to be updated with either nothing or with pick stats. I'm not sure where we're going to go with it, but yeah, that's work in progress, much lower priority than some of the other stuff going on. Leaderboard. I can't show this on my screen because I don't have a rank, but if you are looking at the leaderboard and you are, say, in tier 3, like I am, if you are ranked here, it will put the players around you, it will put the players at the top of your tier, and then it'll just kind of mesh right into tier 1. So tier 1's there for everybody, but maybe it goes 14, 15, 16, 17, 50. Before, it wasn't showing clearly that it was jumping down from 17 to 50, so it wasn't super clear if there was a gap there. Now it shows a little squiggly line in between the two, so it's obvious that it's not just the next person. You've jumped down, so it makes it a little more obvious that you're not connected to the top of the leaderboard. Just a little visual thing that I thought looked better. The profile's URL endpoint contains skill rank scores. If those of you who don't know what that is, if you go to your profile and you go to the URL, you add an S to the URL where it says profile, it'll take you to a page that looks like this. And now you can see in that data, there is now ranked data for every region that you have played games in. So that's important for script makers. Thinking about the rolling 300 script from the past, if you still use that, it goes to this page and it grabs that data. You can see my, oh God, I can't read this quickly. There you go. Win rate stuff is here, basically, is what you need to know. So now it also adds in skill rank stuff. So if you wanted to make scripts that grab player information related to their ranked skill scores, you can do that now with this profiles endpoint. So that's available. Replay data now says that the game was voided and the average skill and the individual skill for each player in that game, just so you can look back at an old game and still know how good each player in the game was, because it's got all that data in the replay itself instead of having to rely on historical data and matching up records, which is a pain. So that was it for the ranked stuff. But as I said, that while that was ongoing, because a lot of that was very technical, we were still working on other things. So non-ranked features and improvements, starting with my favorite, the direct spectate page, which I think has been a huge hit so far. So the direct spectate page, as promised, is this page right here. It shows you all active games that are going on, the score of that game, the map of that game, the timer, all the players, links to those players' profiles if you wanted to see it, and then their tiers if it is a ranked game. And you'll also see that little trophy if it's a ranked game. So this is great because if you want to watch a game, you can just click on spectate and it'll take you right in and you can watch that game. So very, very convenient feature in my opinion. I like to see kind of who's online and all of that. And it's also, this is available while you are queued for a game as well. So if you don't want to just sit around waiting, you can also choose a game to watch while you wait. That all should still be working. Loving the update, Sarah says Crit. Thank you, Crit. I am also loving the update. So thanks for tuning in. Also flares, because why not? But yeah, this page was a lot of work to get done, but I'm really happy with how it's working. We have a couple visual bugs. If it goes to clutch time, I believe, it's currently showing a weird timer there, but very, very minor in the grand scheme of things. So I'm super happy with how well that worked there. If you are in the joiner and you see that little spectate checkbox in the bottom left, that button still does work. It will just pick a random game. So one of these games it'll pick for you. It'll send you in as it did before this release. Next, last game indicator. I think this is a pretty cool feature. I'm not sure how often people are using it yet. I think this will be something that people kind of get used to in the future. If you look in the top left corner while you're in a game, you see a little green arrow. That is the last game indicator. If that arrow is green, that means after this game, you are going to go into another game. If you click on it, it will turn into a red circle with a square, which means you are stopping. When that game ends, instead of going to a new game, you will go back to the home page. So I like to use this as a way to say, oh, this is my last game. I don't want to forget that I told myself this was my last game. So I'll click on that and I'll know if I look away or whatever at the end of the game, I know I'm going to end up on the home page and not end up in another game without having wanted to do that. That's the front end way of using that feature. On the back end, we also look at players who have marked a game as their last, and we don't consider them for ranked wait times. So if you are in the ranked joiner and you say, I want to be playing a ranked game soon, it's looking at everybody in games, in casual and in ranked and in the joiner, and saying, do I have enough players to make a game right now? Should I be waiting for anybody in a game to go to the next one? So if you have a ranked game going on, for example, with tier 3 players, if I queued up right now as a tier 3 player, it would not send me into a ranked game because it knows that there are other tier 3 players who I should be waiting for before I can get into a game. Now, if all 3 of these tier 3 players said, I'm done after this game, and they clicked the this is my last game button, the joiner would stop acknowledging that they exist, and it would say, oh, there are no tier 3 players online, so we can make this person the game as soon as possible. So it's one little way of reducing wait times for players while also giving another front-end feature for people to use as a convenience. So I'm pretty happy with it. I haven't been able to look too closely at the log to see if it's making a difference in wait times yet, but at the worst case scenario is nothing changes for wait times. The best case scenario is that wait times go down. So it's a pretty easy sell for me on that, and also obviously offers something to players who want to stop playing on the front end. So during clutch time, I have not heard any feedback on this next one, so if you have any thoughts, please share. I was kind of hoping for more opinions on this one, but the clock does not reset if a game goes from clutch time to overtime. So previously, before this release, if the game regulation ended, one team had the flag, clutch time starts, the clock starts to count up in a green text or in green characters until clutch time ends. If clutch time ended and it went to overtime, before this release, the clock would go back down to 0 and start counting up in gold. After this release, the clock continues. So if clutch time ended at 10 seconds, overtime starts at 11 seconds. It keeps counting normally for the duration of the game. That's really important for power-up timers. People were having trouble keeping track of when the next power-ups were going to be, because if you knew that you grabbed the power-up at, I don't know, call it 5 seconds into clutch time, and then clutch time ends at 33 seconds. Now do the math for when the clock resets, when does the power-up spawn in overtime? It's like too many numbers. It's like 30. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's too hard to do that. It's annoying. It's not fun. It's not like an actual mechanic that we wanted to promote. So now, if the game goes to overtime, you knew you grabbed it at 5 seconds in clutch time, it's going to spawn at 1 minute and 5 seconds in overtime. It's the same way pups have worked for the entire life of the game, other than when this update came out. So now we're back to a more intuitive thing. So I really want to hear feedback on how people are receiving that, because this issue that I mentioned with the clock is why we were not adding clutch time to casual games, because it was not intuitive. It was annoying. So I think if people are receiving this well, we can start to have that conversation about putting clutch time into casual, and then maybe reworking the casual overtime settings at the same time. So I know, Grant, you're a sucker for that one, so put that bait out there for you. I didn't know that was an issue. LOL. Makes sense, though. I'll take it. So it was an issue for some people. Some people don't follow that as closely. But yeah, Grant says, I think it's just a universal plus if there was a way for clutch OT to still count down instead of up, so they don't completely flip. Yeah, I don't know if there's a way to do that. Well, there is a way to do that, and it would be my complete mess of a conversation last week where I was talking about different game states and how they count up or down, but we're not going to do that this week, so I'm going to go with no, there is not a way to do that. Still strange when it goes to clutch. In comp, we never know when pups are. So G-Man, question for you. If clutch time starts, and you know that you grabbed your clutch time power-up at 8 seconds, why is it not intuitive to know when it's going to spawn in overtime? It's going to be 1 minute later. So even in overtime, it's going to be at 1 minute and 8 seconds. Anything to nuke the current casual OT rules. Might have lost G-Man. All right. Well, let me know, G-Man. I want to hear thoughts. But I'll move on until we hear back from you. So, casual games. Oh. When it gets late in the game, some pups are delayed. Yes. Okay, yeah. So from regulation to overtime or to clutch time, yes, that is still weird. I'm not sure if there's a solution to that. Other than I need NF ranked in my life. Soon. Yeah, I want to talk about what G-Man's saying real quick. So you're saying that if you grabbed a power-up in regulation at like 55 seconds, and then the game ends and it goes to overtime, that pup spawns at 5 seconds. That's an easy example because multiples of 5. But if it spawned at 47 in regulation, you have to know that the pup's going to spawn at 13 in overtime. So I think what he's saying is, even though the clutch time clock makes more sense, there is still some confusion between regulation and extra time, clutch time or overtime, because of that clock changing. I think that's a very valid point. I'm not quite sure what the best way to do that would be. I think the easiest option that we could offer is that the clock timers on the pups resets so that power-ups spawn 1 minute into overtime. I'm not sure if that would be well received or not. It could be an experimental setting, but I don't know if there's really a good way to address that otherwise. It's an interesting note, though. I want to have that. I'm going to write that down just because I want to chat about that later. So we're saying group setting for pups spawn 1 minute into extra time. Yeah, that makes sense. I'd be curious to see how that plays out. I'm not sure. Throw in a golden cap timer with a 20-minute countdown. Well, Grant, you're back to my state thing. If you're back to the states, if you transition from regulation state to your other unnamed state and you say that clock counts down and it's a 1 cap mercy roll, you could do that with the state customizer things. I want to dive into that later, but not today. Not today. So moving on. 3v4 casual game. Yeah, we're here forever. True. 3v4 casual games. If you earn a save attempt, or if you switch teams, so say you're up 1-0, your team has 4, their team has 3. If you switch teams to the team of 3, you get 5 bonus rank points, but we need to change the name of those. You get 5 bonus rank points, but you also get a save attempt. So if you switched onto the losing team and you go on to lose, it will not count against you in your rolling 300. And I think I mentioned this later down, you would also get a shout out if you got a successful save attempt after you switched. And that's for anybody who comes in late. Save attempts are now announced at the end of the game. Yeah, I think that's been requested for a while. I think it's just a good way to make it not be as upsetting to be capped on 4v3, because you're more likely to get a 4th teammate right after that and then gain the added advantage back pretty quickly. So hopefully that is how that goes. We'll see how it plays out for real. This one here, I like this one a lot. Shout out to Dad for getting this one done. Group chat will not auto scroll unless the scroll bar is down. So this one's super easy to show. If I go to a group here, and I'm in a group, and I'm typing, type. Whoop, those are not the letters I should have been typing. If I do all this, and I scroll up, and then I press one more letter, G, it's now not going to scroll down for me. It's going to say there's a new message, and it can scroll down. If I click on that, it'll bring you back down to the bottom. So, a little more exaggerated. You can see it doesn't matter where I go. If I'm up here, it's not going to scroll for me, even if a new message comes in, but I can scroll down to the bottom. I really like this feature because before, if you were up here and somebody typed, it would pull you back down to the bottom on its own, so you would lose your spot, and it was really, really annoying and honestly impossible at times to scroll up in the chat if you wanted to. So really happy with that feature. Seems to be working pretty well as far as I can tell. Group setting for power-up duration. This was a requested feature from the community for having different length of time on different power-ups. So now inside each power-up, you can enable it and disable it just like before, but you can also change how long that power-up runs for. From, wait, instant, what does that mean? I'm not sure if that's a thing or not, if it's a bug. Anyway, any number of seconds between, sorry, not any number of seconds, customizable numbers of seconds, or indefinite is the other one down there. I haven't seen anybody use this for anything yet, but I think there's potential for some mini games here where you have a permanent power-up. I'm not sure how it would be used, but yeah, I don't know what the instant would be. I mean, maybe if it's a rolling bomb, it would explode immediately if you hold spacebar when you grab it or something, but I can't think of any use for other ones. One note with indefinite, if you have a rolling bomb set to indefinite, it is only until you choose to detonate it. So if you detonate your rolling bomb, it does still go away. It does not last forever and give you infinite explosions. Indefinite JJs are things in some games. What? What games? Tell me more. But anyway, those are all there. Curious to see what people do. I think OK then had a tournament on Tuesday messing with those settings. I think shorter tag pros, some mini games. Oh, yes. Yeah, you think about your snipers where you have those power-ups available. But yeah, there's some stuff that can be done with it. I think it'd be cool to play around with those. So, gravity group setting for jumps, resetting by landing on another player, aka buddy jumps. I have a little video that was submitted with that. If you look at, oh gosh, there we go, buddy jumps. So if you look at the flag carrier here, they jumped twice, but if they land on a player, they get 2 more jumps. If they land on a player, they get 2 more jumps. So it resets your jump count every time you land on another player. That existed, this video is a very old video because this existed on the map test servers way back in the day. Those no longer exist, but that setting has now been brought over to production. So if you want to enable buddy jumps, you can do that now in your settings. It's in here somewhere. Is it experimental? Uh-oh. Where'd this go? Jumps reset by landing on player. There we go. Buddy jumps. So, that's a thing now. That was requested by the Gravity community. Hopefully they enjoy it. Group settings for rolling bomb, power and radius. Another thing people can play around with. The rolling bomb, if you want to customize how large an explosion it has or how far away from you that explosion works. Those are both, I think, experimental. Yeah, rolling bomb force, you can make it all the way to 300, all the way down to 50, and radius as well. Same idea on that. So we'll see where that goes. I don't think we're going to be tweaking the base game settings anytime soon, but I think it's just a good thing to offer for people who want to mess around with that. 2v2 pup timers were halved. Yeah, there you go. Automatic region selections. This was a little more technical. Do you happen to know what the old rolling bomb power was as a percentage of the current rolling bomb power? I believe it was 85% of a multiplier. Where could I confirm that? This might crash my stream. Let's see. Scrolling through real quick. Nope, it's not there. Rolling bomb force multiplier. Here it is. Yeah, 85% was the distance, and I think, yeah, and the force. 85% multiplier on both. So that is up. We'll simply set to mimic the old RB, or you could just revert to the classic rolling bomb in the settings. There's a... See, our group settings are a mess. We're back to the... I think I'm gonna prioritize that other thing because this is just terrible. Rolling bomb. We had a setting for rolling bomb behavior. There we go. Default and classic. So classic will go back to the old. If anything touches you, it explodes, and it goes back to the old strength with that setting. So yeah, that's always a thing if you wanted it. But if you wanted the new rolling bomb behavior with the spacebar, but the old strength of the rolling bomb, yes, you could set it to 118%, and that would work just fine. So up to you what you want to do with that. But anyway, back to automatic region selections. This was a pretty technical thing that we added in. I think I've mentioned it on stream in the past, but if you queue up for casual and you have a and you have a region selected over here, if you select automatic on that, it will try to put you in your best region, whatever that ends up being. But if there are no players and no games in that region, it will add your next best region and your next until it finds one with players in it. And this is mostly relevant for players US West and Europe who could definitely play on US East if they were up for it, but they don't get that automatically unless they know ahead of time to click on it. So for new players now, they will more likely than not get into a game, even if it's not a perfect game, because that's better than getting no game at all. And if they don't want to do that, they can just select the region that they actually want and it will keep them there. But when they have automatic selected, which is automatically selected for you, it will try to put you into a game if possible. And this does reset between games. So if you are on US West and it puts you into a US East game and then a bunch of players show up on US West, it will not keep your US East setting. It will start over from West and try to put you there first. So that's a really big one for new players, which is live and seems to be working as far as I can tell. Mini games now launch with active games in the same region. So previously, this is mostly because of how mini games were originally built. If you were in, how do I do this? If you were in a region queued for casual and queued for mini games, if there was an active casual game going, it would not create a mini game because it was saying, okay, you're supposed to go into this casual game. You'll get one when that casual game ends. Because when it was built, there was no way to pull you out of a mini game when another spot was ready. So now that we can do that, now that a mini game is temporary and you'll get pulled out into the casual game, we say just launch it, whatever. If you want to play mini games while you wait, that's fine. As soon as a game slot opens up, you'll just get pulled out of it into your actual game. And I think that's worked pretty well so far. There is one part where it has not been working well, which is the finish all games feature that we added. This was added for players who are queued for casual and ranked, but did not want to get pulled out of casual into a ranked game. They wanted to finish a casual game or finish a ranked game. And so we added this option for those players, but what that does is it stops considering you for other games while you are in a game, like it says. But it also does that for mini games. So if you get into a mini game, it does not consider you for casual while you're in that mini game. So what we had happen, and somebody posted this on the subreddit, a player was only getting put into mini games over and over and over and couldn't figure out why they were never getting a casual game. And that was happening because there were no game slots open for casual in the couple seconds they were in the joiner. It would put them into a mini game, assuming they would get pulled out, but it wouldn't actually consider them to get pulled out of the game. So they had like 9 mini games in a row with nobody else joining them, and everybody else was getting casual games, but not them. So we have to adjust how this setting works. I think we'll just make it so that finish all games only works from casual to ranked and does not do anything from mini game to casual. So I think we're going to change it to finish all casual games, and that should work as people are expecting it to. Just a little thing that came up. So if you're finding that you're only getting mini games, make sure you don't have that selected. That's probably why that is happening for you. Player counts and ranked launchers are now included in site-wide player counts as in-game. So previously, if it was late night, you'd have some players online. Maybe there were 8 of them and they got sent to a ranked launcher. It would show 0 players in 0 games when in fact there were 8 players about to be in one game. And so now if players are down here in a launcher, it includes those counts. There are 16 players in 2 games are all being counted right now in this count. So you can see 8 games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus the 2, or 1 down here. I think it's off by 1 right now. But yeah, it includes the counts of these games up top. So if you see a number up here that says 8 games and you go to the spectate page and you only see 6 games, that's probably why. There are probably some players in a launcher who are about to end up in a game, but they're not there yet. So that's why those counts might not add up, but I think it's more representative of who is online than it was before. So I think that's a good change that we put in. The select page displays updated icons. So on the icons here, you can see the eyeball here, casual, ranked. These are temporary placeholders. These are using Font Awesome. If you're not familiar with Font Awesome, it's just a site that has a bunch of little icons that you can use, and you can plug these right into your site. Very, very, very nice. We use the free version. Anyway, we grabbed a couple of these just to make them look nicer than it was before. The little flares were kind of tiny, and we didn't have a good eyeball flare, so but we have a eyeball flare, but it wasn't a good eyeball flare to have for what we're trying to do. Where it is, yeah, Jimmy. we gotta put the eyeball, but that's kind of creepy to have Jimmy's eye there on the spectate page. So yeah, we decided not to do that and to just go with the Font Awesome icons. So we're working on some longer term actual graphics that look nicer here. We'll get back to you guys when we have an update on that. I talked about the save attempt thing already. Random flare selections are now preserved during account merges. So if you have a bunch of flares selected on your random, like I have all these ones selected for my random. If you merged accounts, it would lose this previously. Now it keeps those selections. Pretty minor thing, but it's a quality of life thing. This is a big one. Player accounts with mutes are now able to chat in private game lobbies if the group is private. So before this update, if you were muted in pubs and you went to a private group, you were not able to type in the private group, but you could type in the private game that the private group launched. And that was not consistent, so we changed that so that the discoverable setting of the group decides whether or not you can type in the group and any game that it creates. So if you are muted in public games and you join a public group, you are still muted. You cannot type in a public group. But if it is a private group, then you can type in that group. If that group launches a private game, you can type in that game if the group was private. You cannot type in that game if the group was public. Questions? Probably a bunch. We're going to have a mod memo out in a couple of days with some more details on that. First one in about 3 years, so that should be nice. And just summarizing other policy changes that have been going on with moderation behind the scenes. So that is on the way. The chat filter has also been updated to block multi-line messages. So previously, if you were trying to dodge the filter, you could send one letter at a time in different messages, and the filter would not even recognize it as anything because they were only looking at one message at a time. Now the filter will put those letters together and say, oh, hold on, I see what you're doing here, and it will block the letter that would have broken the rules as you keep going. So it's an improved filter, but it is also generating more false positives because it's taking multiple line messages, putting them together. And there are some words that have not been put together before because they're unrelated sentences that now make it look like you're trying to dodge the filter. So we're adding in a bunch of handling for that. I'm updating it pretty much every day. So if you see something get blocked, hopefully it won't stay blocked for long. Yeah, so that's the big bulk of what we did here in terms of changes. Really, really excited with this. There were some bug fixes out in this release as well, mostly related to little things. Oh yeah, I talked about this several times on stream. If you were in a casual game and got selected for ranked, you were stuck in that casual game for a full 65 seconds and then you would redirect at the end. Now it's working as we expected it to from the very start, which is if you pop and there is a replacement player available, they will come in, they will take your spot, and you will go to your ranked game. So much less disruptive for the casual game and faster for the players who want to play ranked while they are waiting. Just a better experience for everybody. In my opinion, you're less likely to leave at a critical moment because you're more likely to have been respawning when you leave. So from what I can tell, it's working really well so far. I have not heard many complaints about that, so I'm pretty excited with how well it's working so far. Games will no longer disconnect all socket connections. So this happened twice in 2 days. Both of them happened to light, so it was really funny. And everyone's playing the game, and then all of a sudden everyone leaves the game, and then everyone comes back to the game, but the game ends. It was a really confusing thing for us to look into. This happened twice in 2 days. We found out that the server was receiving an update unrelated to TagPro, and then it decided to just sever all socket connections when it got that update instead of waiting for the game to end. So now we make it wait and process its update after the game that it's running has ended. So it was pretty funny because Hugh reached out. He was like, yo, what just happened? And they were like, actually, we have no idea. And then the next day it happened again. He's like, guys, what are we doing here? So should not happen again in the future. End of game redirects. Should you send you to the right place? We had a bunch of issues with this. I think I've talked about this a couple times as well on stream. Just if the game ends, you want to go a certain place, we want to make sure you actually get there. That wasn't always happening. Basic. Now it should send you where you want to go, and that is good. Hello, Oddball TP. And then we've got synchronization stuff. I talked about this already with the leaderboards. If you finish a ranked game, this should reflect what the leaderboard reflects and should reflect what the end of game movement said that it should reflect. So it's just consistency across all the places that your skill score could be represented are all now working as expected. So players who disconnect from the joiner between their ranked launcher and ranked game will now appropriately receive a void. So one person figured this out, and maybe more than one, but we only caught one person who figured it out, where if they did not like their team, they could vote on a map, wait until that game got sent to the joiner, leave the joiner before they got sent to the game, and they would not get a void penalty or a disconnect for leaving that ranked game. It was losing track of them along the way. One person figured it out. We then gave them a 3-week ban because they were abusing it like every single game, and they stopped doing it. But nobody else seemed to be making use of this, thankfully. So now that's patched. It will mark you as a void if you leave at any point between the game being created and the game happening. But yeah, so that's good. connectivity issues, multiple players. Yeah, so we had a couple of times where like 6 different players couldn't get to a ranked game at all. Like they just couldn't load into it, and we determined it was a server issue. It was not them doing anything malicious. So we now have a way to check for that. If it happens, we just throw the game out because 6 players aren't voiding the game. They can't get in. So now we handle that properly. Random map selector. I've laughed about this on stream a couple times. If you look at the map selection rates, it's now going to be much more balanced, because previously it was prioritizing maps earlier in the alphabet over the rest of the maps, because the math.random function doesn't actually give you a random number, TIL. But that is fixed now, so it should be much more balanced in the maps that you're being offered during the voting page. Flare log. This is a big one that's been around for a long time now. If you look up here, previously, if you went to the site and came back a couple times, the order of these 3 players would be kind of all over the place. It was never consistent who was on top, who was on bottom. Now it is, and you shouldn't get as many errors in your console related to the flare log disconnecting now. So that's been something that was bugging us for a while. We finally got that patched up. Spectating public games. This is a very minor issue. If you were in a public group and you queued for casual games and you were spectating a game while you were waiting, if somebody in the group typed something, it would look like somebody in the game had typed that message. It was grabbing the wrong name from the wrong list of players, grabbing a name from the wrong list of players to look like a different person had said a message. So that's fixed now. Other thing with groups, if you were on an IP address that was shared and that shared IP address had been banned or muted, it was removing your ability to chat even though you, as a logged in player, were not muted. So that's fixed now. If your account is muted, we talked about that already, but if your IP is muted, it ignores that and goes with whatever your account is, as expected. This one was funny. Maps with a single respawn tile with a bunch of walls. It brought the entire New York server down like 6 times in a week, so we added in a patch to stop doing that. What does the new button under exit do, by the way? That is our last game indicator. So if you click on that, it'll turn into a red circle with a little square in it, and that is you saying, this is my last game. I do not want to play another game after this one. If you have clicked on that, it will take you out of your game onto the home page when the game ends, instead of putting you back into the joiner to go to another game. So if you don't like forgetting, like I do, that you want it to stop after this game, click that at the beginning of your game and it won't send you into another one when that game ends. The other part of that was that it helps with reducing wait times for ranked, but I'm not going to go through that again now. But it'll stop waiting for you if you are queued for ranked. Other things that went live before today, just minor stuff. I'm not going to go through all this. This was all live before. I talked about this on stream for a while because I lost my mind going through this thing. But we are considering all possible combinations for ranked now and for everything. So matches are now happening as expected. So that is 67 minutes of me talking about a new TagPro release. This was, again, a lot of work to get this all together, but I'm so excited to be done with this one and we can move on to other better things. So for the last little bit of this stream, I wanted to go through and close some of the candy board tickets that I know we closed in this release. And then maybe we'll have time to go through a couple of candy tickets as well, but I think we're going to skip the feature building session this week. So first up, things that we closed indicate that a save has been earned. Oh, didn't say the word A. Indicate that save. No? What did this say? Indicate that save has been earned. That's the name of it. Oh, am I in bug reports only? Of course I am. There we go. All right, this was in progress. This is now complete. I should probably get the release notes in the note here. This request is now live. Read about it here. And that's good. What else do we have here? We've got make automatic joiner setting puts you in servers with games going on. This is now complete. group setting to make pup times changeable. Add a group. This is complete. And we've got award USAs to players who switch teams. This is complete. And I think that was all the stuff there. I do want to go through the in progress tickets and see if there's anything else we forgot to make a ticket for that we did. Is that it? Oh, I guess there's nothing. We got it all. Let me just double check the feedback tab then and make sure I'm not missing anything with their filters. No, I did. What the heck? There are a bunch of things. What? Why aren't these showing up? Open, in progress. Oh, without USA. I'm very technologically savvy. Okay, there's a bunch of stuff here that we've done. Okay, I think we can mark ranked mode as done. Is that fair? For the ranked tier flares, is there anywhere that shows you how many more wins you need? Not yet. If you want to put a ticket in for that, that'd be fantastic. Currently, it just says the number of wins you need total. It does not say how many you have towards that next win. I think that would be a really good thing to add. And in addition to that, showing how much you are above or below the season-long 15-game average in this message, saying you have 436 out of 500, whatever it actually is at the time. So putting that up here, and then putting in this tooltip, you need like 5 more wins at or above or whatever. That would be a good thing to add for sure. Not critical, obviously, to get things working, but definitely like a longer term to do that. Absolutely. I think you can put them together. They'd be pretty similar requirements to do. I think that can be one ticket easily enough. And if we decide not, then I'll just break it up on our end, and that's totally fine. All right, I am marking ranked matchmaking as complete. Yes, finally. Oh my god. Stress is now live. Read about it here. Boom. Oh, that feels so good. Ghost balls. I think we did this in the previous release, right? Ghost mode. That was in release number 34. Yeah. That on Steam. That is in progress. We'll leave that there. Flaccid and Cap save stats. Okay, this is also in progress. We did part of it, but not all of it, so I'll leave that alone. Announce that there will be new sunballs. This is also in progress because it's currently undergoing trial with the mod team. I think it's ready to move into an actual feature, but it is technically in progress. Add clutch time to pubs casual games. Oh look, Oddball, are you still here? I think we'll make this our feature building thing next week. Let me make a note of that. Talking about what to do with the clutch time, or with the clutch time settings and with the casual settings, in casual in general. Casual settings. So that is also in progress. Show ranked win rate. Damn, this is also in progress. How did we not finish all these things? So we have the leaderboard, not a leaderboard, the progression chart, like the graph on your profile that says you're going up and down. That's still in progress. It'll be in the next release. But that is this, so yes. More accessible ranked stats. Is this in progress? I'm kind of confused about this one. I think it's kind of the same thing, so. This is done. This part I know is done. This is, yes. Multiple window redirects should be working as expected now. Please reach out on Discord if you notice any irregularities. Hopefully I spelled that right. I don't care. Moving on. Elo updating incorrectly. This is fixed in this previous release. I've now lost that link. Fix for this is live. Read about it here. That's good. Matchmaking broken. What? Oh, this is also fixed. Yep. Got that. Very high rank equals flare. We got that. Flares at the top. This request is live. This feels so good. Getting these out of here. Fix is live. I'm winning ranked games, losing elo. What's up? Fix is live. All right. Nice. That feels good. That feels really good. What else can we do? We've got about 10 minutes to kill here. Well, I've got Oddball here, and I've got Grant, who are my two biggest proponents for changing casual stats, or casual settings. You guys want to do it? It shouldn't take too long. Oh, I didn't talk about changes that went in since the release. Let me take 2 seconds to do that, because there were some fixes to other things. So the release went live on Monday, which is the 17th. So things that were fixed between the 17th and now were... Wow, way more things than I thought. There we go. Okay. So first one was Grant reported this on the spectate page. We had players who were white naming showing up with links to their account. So if this person has no reserve name, you could still click on their name and it would take you to their account, just like if you click on this one. That is fixed now because they're supposed to not be displayed. Then we had server shuffle. I don't know what that means. Oh, we had ranked games being launched on all servers. So we had a bunch of ranked games happening on like New York servers because it was not properly vetting that the game server was only for hosting ranked games. So it was just finding the best server for those players, and that ended up being New York for a bunch of people. So we accidentally removed the Chicago only feature of ranked. So it was sending people to US East a lot more frequently than US Central, which was fun for US East players, very not fun for anybody not on US East. So that was patched up quickly. Is there a lot to design? No, it's very simple to design Oddball. Off topic, perhaps a flare progress bar would be sweet. Yes, G-Man. Grant was just talking about that. If you want to message him, he's going to put in a ticket to do exactly what you're talking about there. We had some back-end stuff that was fixed. We had one issue with redirects in main.js that came up again. Mostly it was for players who were queuing for ranked, spectating a ranked game, and then the ranked game they were spectating ended. They were getting sent to the home page instead of back to the joiner as expected, so we patched that up. Then we had issues with the leaderboard order. It was getting, like, one person was out of order if they passed somebody else, even though they should have been 15th. They still had the score, they still had the rank 15, but they were above the 14th player, so just getting the order of those correctly. We fixed in the ranked launcher, which I can't show you right now, but pre-game when you're voting on maps, it was showing everybody as a white name, but everybody in there is a green name because everybody has to have a reserve name in ranked. Fixed that. Then we had an issue with the wait times being preserved for players who are spectating games. So if you were spectating a game, it was not saving how long you had been waiting before you started watching that game. It was resetting you, which was messing up who gets priority on the next game. So we fixed that, so it knows how long you've been waiting. Then we've got pre-game. Oh yeah, then we got the end of game display that I talked about, where it was showing everybody as new in a void except for the voiding player. Now it shows everybody as the actual tier that they are in, and it still shows the voiding player and whatever they lost. A quick thing, it wasn't a bug now, but it was going to be a major bug. I realized we were not checking the date on ranked games for awarding the leaderboard flares. If I had not realized this, then when Season 1 started, everybody would have immediately jumped up to whatever tier they were in with the games that they used in Season 0. So now it will make sure that they're from the correct season when you play a ranked game. We updated this here because there were 8 tiers originally, and there still are the capacity for 8 tiers, but when you hover over this, it says requires 20 wins. Previously, it was showing requires 10 wins because it was not counting the 5 wins for tier 7 and the 5 wins for tier 8. So now, bronze only technically needs 10 wins, but we take the 5 from ranked ball and take the 5 from what's the one after bronze? I can't even remember. Iron. That's right. It takes ranked ball and iron, takes their 5 wins and puts it up to the bottom tier. So if bronze went away and you didn't have bronze anymore, silver would actually require 30 wins at or above that tier because there's no tier below it. So the total number of wins at the top stays the same. We just change the display so it's obvious to players what they actually need if there are fewer than 8 tiers in a region. So that went in. Already put in a ticket. Thank you, Grant. Never going to be able to get ranked ball flare until we get another push. Yeah, we're on the cusp of 7 right now. We're at 200, I think 210 or 215 active players. We need 220 to get to 7 tiers, and then you would need 250 players to get to 8 tiers. Active players, not all players. We have like 700 total players playing ranked with more than 25 games, but we need more than 250 of them to have been playing 15 games per week. So we'll see how that looks in Season 1 with actual timelines, because a lot of players were not playing ranked because they couldn't get games. Now they are, but they're still not counted in these counts. So we might actually have enough for 7 or 8 tiers. We'll see how that looks in Season 1 soon. Other things that we fixed. There was an issue with one of the gravity things, the buddy jumps. One little crash that happened because we aren't really sure how it happened. We have an easy fix for it. We still don't know what caused it. It's more of a Box 2D issue than a TagPro issue, but we patched that up so it doesn't cause the game to crash. We also fixed there's an invalid map check. So I mentioned that if there's a player on a spawn tile with a bunch of walls around them, if 2 players spawn there, it would crash the server. We fixed that, but we fixed that by making the game shut down instead of the server shutting down. That fix that we put in was a little bit more aggressive than it needed to, and it was shutting down maps that didn't actually need to shut down because they weren't going to crash the server. So we just fine-tuned that a little bit more, which fixed some of the gravity maps that they were trying to play after the release. What else? That's most of it. Oh, the launcher now sorts players by skill, so the top skill players at the top, bottom skill players are at the bottom in the launcher, the map voting page. Oh, we had an issue with last 5 games, so it keeps track of your most recent 5 games when they were to help us determine activity levels. We forgot to, well, no, we didn't forget to. We tried to and failed to remove the 6th game as you go, so it was just adding in more and more games, which resulted in some players being marked inactive because it was looking at their last 5 games from before the release. So even if they played 30 games after the release, it was still looking at that 5th to last game from before the release because it wasn't deleting those entries as expected. So we fixed that up. And we've got, that's the bulk of it. There were a couple tiny things, but that's not a big deal. I talked about the leaderboard already, where it was only picking 5 players. Right now we have it force it down to 5th percentile. That's done. A little issue with redirects where players were spectating games and then getting sent to a ranked game at the end of the spectating, and sometimes it was sending you back to the home page and not letting you into your launcher. That created a couple of voids. That fix will go in later today. It's a very, very minor thing though. And yeah, okay, good enough for me. That's the bulk of what went in the last week here. So Crit says, when does Season 1 go live? Season 1 should go live in the next few days. We're currently testing the season reset, which is going from Season 0 to Season 1. We're testing it on a production database that's not actually the production database. So if something breaks, we're not messing anything up. We're just testing it a couple different ways, making sure it works correctly for all of them so that we can start smoothly in Season 1 in the next couple of days. It should happen at some point. For example, I don't have enough ranked games yet to count. Oh yeah, it doesn't matter for Season 0. You're still going to get the Season 0 flare no matter what. So you're not missing anything if you don't get to the activity level for Season 0. You will be missing things if you don't maintain the activity level in Season 1, though, which will be out soon. So that puts us at 5 minutes to go. I think we can crank out some casual map rules or casual game rules. Let's go to a group real quick. So right now, if you are in a ranked game, these settings are last possession, clutch time, enabled winnable only, and they are overtime. There's a +5 capture mercy rule, no cap limit, 8-minute games, and in overtime you have disabled respawn increments and disabled juke juices. So these are your ranked matchmaking settings. You also have no script. And for casual games, you remove all of this and you have it as exactly what it was when I joined the group. You have a +3 cap mercy rule, you have overtime, you have no clutch time, scripts are allowed, and I think that's everything. So what would we want to change briefly in casual? So I think the first thing we'd want to change is the clutch time, if we think that's working. We're going to keep it at 6 minutes. I agree with that. For casual, keep it at a 3 cap mercy. I think that's pretty reasonable. User scripts we can keep enabled, I'm sure. So for overtime, do we want to do anything? Do you want to keep it as is? Do you want to change it to like a 1 second respawn increment? Do you want to not do anything to the respawn increments? Do you want to just mirror ranked entirely? Do you just have it be exactly the same ranked and casual? What works for you? Paste this into so just copy ranked, just make it shorter with a 3 cap mercy and allow scripts. It's an easy sell. So the discussion here, for those who have not been following Grant's, I don't know what they call it. It's not a tirade. It's more of a crusade. There we go. Grant's crusade against the casual overtime settings is that the casual settings right now make casual games last longer than they would if you just didn't do all this weird stuff. So for casual games right now, you have overtime respawn increments. Every time you pop, it adds 3 seconds to your casual respawn wait time. Sorry, that's a bad way of saying that. Every time you pop, your respawn gets 3 seconds longer. And every time you get the flag, it gives you a juke juice for 20 seconds. So Grant's argument is that when you do that, you are making games take longer because now flag carriers are harder to kill and players are spawning less frequently to actually find them and pop them. So you have longer OT games when the goal of OT is to end the OT in a reasonable manner. So Oddball says OT bonus, juke juice, and respawn are good for casual. So I would like to hear both sides of that argument, Oddball. Why do you think that it is better to keep things as they are now as opposed to removing those two settings? I'm curious. Because I can see the justification when Lucky first added it. I think the idea was not to make it harder to get a flag carrier. It was to make it easier for a flag carrier to score. I think that was the original justification. You have fewer obstacles. It's easier for you to maneuver with the flag. You would rather games end in a tie than play games with those settings. Wow. That's controversial because I would not want to end in a tie. I'm anti-tie. I wouldn't mind the JJ still being active, but the wait timer makes it boring. And then Oddball says, I can see the argument for no JJ, but don't respawn increments make them faster. That's really funny. So it's hard to say. I think that's what I want to kind of explore. Is it more likely for a game to end if there are fewer players on the map? Because what I see usually when I play casual, as respawn timers get higher and higher, is that players play a lot more conservatively. They don't take risks. They don't branch out because they know they only have 1 or 2 active teammates, so they shouldn't be overcommitting or making any mistakes. I think that, in my opinion, is what makes the game actually take longer, is that waiting for your team to be at full strength, because it's very, very hard to wait for a time that the other team is not at full strength, but you are. That doesn't really come up very often. So a hybrid where neutral flag has those settings, but not capture the flag. So you're saying the flag carrier has the juke juice in neutral flag because nobody can, if they get chased down, it's by somebody who's then going to have the flag, so you're not having that problem of not getting a reset. I can see the argument there. But even for that, though, I think both of these settings do make a lot of intuitive sense for neutral flag because you have fewer players in the way and you're moving faster, so it's more likely that a capture ends the game. Capture comes in to end the game. But I think actually it's a very good point. The capture the flag is where you see this problem more so than neutral flag. So, okay, following this line of thinking, what could we do for capture the flag that would make games end faster? If we say keep those settings for neutral flag, what could you do for capture the flag? We've got a bunch of settings to play with now. There's other stuff here. If we wanted to ghost mode, there you go. That's what you need. Combine JJ and Rolling Bomb. Give the flag carrier a Rolling Bomb and a Juke Juice. Give everyone a TagPro and no respawn. Interesting. I don't know if we can get... So, going with the settings we have now, we can't just give everybody a TagPro. We can only give the flag carrier a Juke Juice, but we could make a Juke Juice also be a Rolling Bomb. Sudden death. Just make the power-up duration indefinite. So power-ups don't expire now. If you get one, you have it for the rest of the game. I think the end game of that is both teams with 4. No timers on boosts. That's an interesting one. Remove boost timers. Make boost respawn instant. Anything that makes capping easier doesn't just make it easier for the opposing FC to live, which makes capping impossible. Yes, that's a very true statement. I think the boost respawn has the same problem there, where flag carriers now have infinite options to sit on and wait for someone to get close and then boost away. So yeah, that's a good point. Great. It's almost pushing me towards... What makes a game end? When do games end? Games end when one team has momentum. How does a team get momentum? They get momentum when somebody pops or makes a mistake. We can't force players to make mistakes. We can force players to pop to a certain degree, or at least increase the frequency of that happening. But then that's just pushing you back towards longer respawn times because now there's more time for momentum to occur, which I just argued 5 minutes ago the exact opposite when I said that I think players play more conservatively when their teammates are spawning. So, and pull some ranked game OT length stats. Yeah, we could. See which ones are longer. That'd be a Tumblewood project. Do you want to ping Tumblewood? See if we can get some data there? I don't know, it's an interesting thought. Which one actually is longer? I'm not sure. Most of them end in a minute, yeah. I think that's true. Just for the casual meta, I'm not sure if the meta is different enough that it would take longer. Change ball size. Larger or smaller? Random? 2 players get larger, 2 get smaller? I'd love to play around with that, actually. Different shapes. Make everyone a triangle. Bring back the April Fool's event. Give everyone JJ. Punish slow reaction times more. Make sure all the European players lose their overtime games on US servers. Make the FC bigger, everybody else small. Okay. Well, I think I'm gonna have to talk to the future group about this more, see where we land on it. I don't think I have a there's no obvious correct answer right now in front of me. I do feel like there's something here in combining the juke juice and the rolling bomb. Instead of just giving them a juke juice, you also give them an RB, because then the flag carrier can be an active part of their own return. Adding clutch time and not changing anything else is the easiest part. That's the easiest option. Is just saying, okay, we added this other thing in, but all that's going to do is make more overtimes, because all clutch time does is say, okay, there's one more chance to send this game to OT. So the OT problems don't go away if we add that in. They potentially actually become worse because you're making more of them. Not that I'm completely against doing that as a starting point, but that's the consideration that I have running around in the back of my head right now. But I don't know. Okay, this is a good starting point for the conversation I want to have with the Steerco, so I think we'll call it there. For next week, I might have to start a little late, maybe like a 1:30. I'll make sure I put that in the post that I put up in a little bit. But release mode, we made it. Next release should be pretty close. We're still finalizing some other things that we're not quite done in time for this release. So we're probably looking at like a month-ish for the next release, maybe a little bit sooner than that when we have that all wrapped up. Ranked Season 1 should come out next week pretty soon. We want to trial a neutral flag for a day or two before that. Make sure nothing's crashing on that front. And yeah, thanks everyone for sticking around while we get through that all. So I thought I had something else I wanted to say for a sign-off, but I forget, so I'm not going to say it. So thanks all for tuning in. Allow throwing flags. Oh yeah, turn on egg ball mode for overtime. Or when you pop, the flag doesn't reset. It pops and it stays where you popped, so it gets gradually closer to the finish line as you go. That's the other one I want to mess with. But anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a good weekend, and I will see you all soon.